Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and today I'm going to be giving my match predictions for week 24 Premier League fixtures. And if we get anything like we just saw in week 23, we are in for some amazing games and some amazing goals. We saw some upsets. We saw Leicester City absolutely decimate Tottenham Hotspur at the King Power Stadium. We also saw Arsenal drop points in the title race again against Brentford. Could this prove to be decisive near the end of the season? Also, we saw other amazing games at Manchester City beating Aston Villa, closing the gap when it comes to the title race. We saw Southampton sack their manager, Nathan Jones, when they were winning 1-0 against Wolves. Imagine, with 11 men and Wolves at 10. So as we know in the sport of football, it's so unpredictable, anything can happen. And let's see what happens in week 24 Premier League fixtures, and it won't disappoint. We got Arsenal versus Manchester City, two of the best teams in the country facing it off for the Premier League title race. We got Newcastle versus Liverpool, one of the most high-scoring fixtures in Premier League history. We also got Wolves versus Bournemouth in a relegation scrap, so let's see what happens there. However, before going this video and give my match predictions, you know I'm going to say, make sure you guys like, comment, and hit the big subscribe button right there, because only 10% of you guys are actually subscribed to my channel. And make sure you drop your predictions. So the first game I'm going to be predicting is Arsenal versus Manchester City, and what an important, decisive game this is going to be in terms of the Premier League title race. We know these two teams are the best teams within the country, facing it off, the two best teams which play the brand of football the right way when it comes to this sport. And we know both managers, Arteta and Pep Guardiola, are forward thinking and are going to demand perfection from the players to get the all-important 3 points. And going into this game, a few weeks ago, you would have thought clearly Arsenal are going to win. They've been in great form, the best team in the country, the way they've been accumulating points, the way they've been dominating teams. However, in the last few weeks or so, it feels like the levels of the performances has dropped. It has dipped. And we saw this in the game against Everton, losing at Goodison Park. And even the game against Brentford, in my opinion, I truly think Brentford deserved all 3 points. It feels like the Arsenal team have hit a brick wall. It feels like they haven't been able to rise to the performances and the levels they have in the past. And I just feel like Mikel Arteta needs to freshen up his lineup, because it just feels like he isn't getting anywhere with the current team he keeps putting on display. I feel like players like Trossard must start in the game against Manchester City because he's in good form. He scored a goal against Brentford, and we have seen in the last few weeks or so, Martinelli's levels and performances has been dipping, it has been dropping, and I feel like he needs a breather. Tomiyasu as the right back ahead of Ben White will provide better defensive structure and stability against Jack Grealish on the left hand side. So these are the little tinkers, these are the little adjustments Mikel Arteta must start, because right now Arsenal do look stale, they do look predictable, and I feel like teams are starting to figure out their patterns of play and the way they are looking to hurt oppositions. However, heading into this game, I feel like Arsenal have caught a little bit of a break because Erling Haaland will not be starting for Manchester City. He was injured in the game against Aston Villa, which led to him getting subbed off, and we have seen in the last few weeks or so, we're starting to see the chinks in the Arsenal's armour. We are starting to see what their weaknesses are, which Manchester City could potentially exploit, and we have seen it. DSL, Ivan Toney, big strong target man who like to be physical, who do like to make sure their presence is known on the pitch. Erling Haaland will be missing in this aspect, which has been giving problems to someone like William Saliba in the past, in the last 2 games or so. So let's see how Manchester City will adjust to this, and I feel like they will start with Julian Alvarez, who is no slouch himself, but I just feel like the makeup of that Arsenal back four favours players who are tricky, who want to have that pace in behind, wants to make runs in behind, because we know William Saliba does have the pace to make up for it, even if he's caught off in a bad starting position. So I feel like Arsenal do have the advantage in that aspect of the game. And although the Emirates is a tough ground to go to, Arsenal still are yet to lose their all season, only drawing 2 and winning the rest. The energy and the atmosphere has suited Arsenal because it's giving them that sort of boost when it comes to facing oppositions. And Manchester City will have to be wary of this, because Emirates is never an easy place to go to, especially this season when picking up a result. But I just feel like Manchester City, they're made for moments like this. They got the experience, they got the know-how, they're not going to be fazed by the moment, they're not going to feel the pressure, the palms aren't going to get sweaty like the Arsenal players are right now, as we've seen, since the squad is relatively young. We know they still have the youngest squad when it comes to the Premier League, so the fact that they're in this position is credit to them. However, we do know they have it in them to crumble and start to feel the pressure, just like we saw last season. So let's see what will happen. I just feel like Manchester City will have the momentum, chasing Arsenal, knowing that it's a must-win game, so there's no split minds and there's no dual thoughts of thinking potentially we can just snatch a draw and it's okay. Arsenal will be playing not to lose, which will not work into the advantage of them, because maybe this will throw them off their own game plan when it comes to attacking Manchester City, which will allow Manchester City to be on the front foot and score more goals and potentially get the win. Although Arsenal are right now the new cool shiny toy, give me the well-oiled machine who has been there and done it before and know how to get these sort of results. I think Manchester City, in Manchester City fashion, will make a statement against Arsenal away from home and beat them. I'm going for a 2-1 away victory for Manchester City in this fixture. So the next game I'm going to be predicting is Newcastle versus Liverpool, and this has the potential to be the game of the weekend. We know this game is so pivotal to both teams' hopes when it comes to qualifying for Champions League football next season. And going into this game, you would usually say Newcastle should be the overwhelming favourites, especially with how well they have been doing this season. But in the last few weeks or so, it feels like the performances has tailed off. It feels like they don't have the same intensity. They're lacking that sort of energy they had at the beginning of the season, which made them so clear winning game after game. Going into this game against Liverpool, as a Liverpool fan, I feel like it's the perfect time to play Newcastle. Bruno Guimaraes, we know he provides that little bit of spark, that creativity in the midfield. Newcastle are missing him. So they're going to have the workman-like mentality within the midfield to do the hard yards, but not have that creative instinct on the ball to really hurt Liverpool's vulnerable back line. The fact that Newcastle have drawn their last 3 games consecutively, and it's not like they're drawn to Manchester City or anyone like that. They're drawing to teams they really should be beating, like Crystal Palace, Bournemouth, etc. Teams you should be putting out the sword if you really think you're going to be qualifying for the Champions League this season. This will give Liverpool hope that they're always going to have a chance. They're always going to be within the game, even if they're getting dominated, even if they're getting destroyed. There's always going to be hope that Liverpool can get that last minute equaliser to potentially tie up the game. Also, Newcastle, I feel like the ASM experiment right now with St. Maximin, he hasn't been performing. He is a maverick. He's so unpredictable. You don't really know what you're going to get out of him. 1 minute, St. Maximin performs like he's a 10 out of 10. Next game, it's a 2 out of 10. And that's what we saw against Bournemouth. Not really rising to the levels that we have seen in the past. I feel like Anthony Gordon must start. Newcastle's new star-studded signing, who we know came for great money and has great potential. We saw how pivotal he was to Everton last year in surviving, and even at the beginning of this season, performing very well. And with that hatred against Liverpool, we know he's going to be extra motivated to put Liverpool at the sword, to beat them and really take on Trent Alexander-Arnold, which is one of Liverpool's weak points when it comes to defending. Funnily enough, despite Liverpool being the only team that have beaten Newcastle this season, I can't see them winning this game. This is because it's at St. James's Park. Newcastle are still yet to lose there all season, and I just feel like personally, no team's going to win there, especially Liverpool, who we know have been so poor this season, especially going forward this year. Still not having a goal scorer who scored more than 1 goal this year. So in that aspect, especially with Newcastle's strong defence, having the best defensive record, Liverpool will struggle to accumulate goals, 2 or 3 to potentially beat Newcastle, which will be needed, especially since we know Liverpool will concede. This Liverpool team, as we have seen this season, are scared, they're flimsy. We see them when they go away from home, they extremely struggle, like we saw in the game against Brighton, losing 3-0, losing against Wolves 3-0, getting absolutely blown away and decimated. And I know Newcastle do not score goals in bunches like those two sides. I still feel at the end of the day, Newcastle should have enough within their squad, within their repertoire, within their arsenal to get a result. I feel like Liverpool will hang on for dear life in this game, and I think we'll get a draw. I think it's going to end 1-1 between the two sides. So the next game we're predicting is Manchester United versus Leicester City, and in typical fashion, I would usually say Manchester United are the favourites, and they should be held as the favourites. But in my opinion, I think this potentially could be a great opportunity for Leicester City to pick up points against the side. This is because Manchester United have so many fixtures, so many games coming up in the next few weeks or so, that their squad is going to be tired, especially with suspensions and key injuries to players. Manchester United will not have the best starting 11 to go against Leicester City, who we know in the last 2 games have scored 8 goals. Leicester City have been deadly, they've been clinical, they've been putting teams at the sword, and they have just been dangerous. Inacho in that number 9 role has been performing well, scoring 2 goals. Maddison, back from injury, showing his creativeness, showing that he has a goal in him, even from the midfield, causing teams havoc. Even Harvey Barnes, showing that he's not just a showboater, he actually has end product, he actually has substance to his game and can actually punish teams. I feel like Leicester City will be very dangerous, especially from transitioning the ball from defence to attack against Manchester United in this game, where we know Manchester United have struggled without Casemiro as that defensive pivot, defensive minded player who can break up play, especially in the game against Leeds at Old Trafford. I just feel like Manchester United were so open, so vulnerable, literally asking, begging Leeds to hurt them, their back line who are isolated. I feel like Leicester City are way more clinical and can score goals in bunches to really hurt Manchester United. The fact that Manchester United still have to play in the Europa League on Thursday against Barcelona at the Camp Nou, this is going to have Ten Hag and the squad's attention, and I just feel like going into the game against Leicester City, potentially this could leave certain players being rested like we saw against Leeds with Sabitzer and Fred, which I feel like isn't good enough to be that defensive pivot to protect that back four. I feel like Leicester City will have so many chances to hurt Manchester United, especially on the counter-attack. If Manchester United dare to start Maguire and Shaw as the centre-backs, I promise you it isn't going to be as simple as it was against Leeds at Ellen Road, even though Leeds could have won that game due to the amount of chances they had. Although Ten Hag doesn't like rotating when it comes to his team, I just feel like he will have no choice, especially with the cup final coming up, Barcelona away trip. This is the sort of game they're going to have to do so, rely on the atmosphere, rely on their home record to literally scrape them through this game and crawl over the finish line. So going into this game, I honestly think Leicester City have a great opportunity to win this game. Rashford can't keep bailing out Manchester United with his last minute goals, it feels like, or the goals he keeps getting them to get points. So in this game, I'm going to be predicting an upset. Yes, Manchester United have been in decent form, potentially in a title charge, but at the end of the day, I think Leicester City will win. I'm going to go for a dominant display, 2-1 away from home for Leicester City. So the next game we're predicting is Tottenham Hotspur versus West Ham, and this is going to be a very highly anticipated game since it's a London derby. And going into this game, Tottenham Hotspur, where do I even start? Being Spursy as usual, and I can't believe I started to trust them and have faith that they're going to turn their season around, especially beating Fulham away, which is never easy, and beating the Premier League champions Manchester City. In typical Spursy fashion, they lose, get battered, decimated by Leicester City 4-1 away from home at the King Power Stadium. With Tottenham, it just feels like they take one step forward, then 2 steps back, and you just never know what sort of performance is going to come out of that side. Literally, you feel like they've turned a corner, they've turned a chapter, they've turned a new leaf, and they just disappoint you. So even if they're in great form, you just never know how they're going to perform. And going into this game against West Ham, I don't know what side of bed they're going to wake up and feel when it comes to this fixture. Even though literally last week the morale and the confidence in the squad must have been high, I just feel like it's completely switched. And in this game against West Ham, it's going to be hard, it's going to be tough, it's going to be a physical battle. I feel like West Ham is going to make sure Tottenham Hotspur feel their presence when it comes to the duels, the 50-50 battles, all that type of stuff. And I feel like Tottenham Hotspur at times will struggle within this game. I feel like they've got such key injuries now, which people aren't really talking about. Hugo Lloris, I'm never the biggest fan of him, but of course we know he's a massive upgrade to Fraser Foster, who let some goals in, which I feel like potentially he should have saved. Even to Bentancur, that's a massive injury. He's out for the season. And we know he's pretty much Tottenham Hotspur's only real creative spark within the midfield since they play a 3-4-3 flat. So someone like Højbjerg will be accompanied by someone like Skip, who we know is nothing of the player, who has no technical skill, no technical ability on the ball to really hurt and punish teams. And even Porro, at that right wing back position, he's making Emerson Royale look respectable and decent with that poor performance, that stinker performance he dropped against Leicester City. So if you're West Ham, you're going to be liking your chances. You're going to be thinking potentially we could pick up points against this Tottenham Hotspur, who are suffering from confidence and injuries going into this game. And in terms of West Ham, I feel like David Moyes is starting to turn around the situation at the club. He's starting to get the fans back into favour. Since his team has started to perform better, I feel like the 2 draws against Chelsea and Newcastle is actually quite good. Even though West Ham fans would want to win, they all know the sort of quality their teams they're going to be facing. In Newcastle, who are in the top 4, and Chelsea, who have spent gazillion pounds when it comes to this transfer window. I feel like David Moyes is starting to trust Ben Rama again, who's been one of West Ham's best players this season. Jared Bowen is starting to replicate a little bit glimpses of his old form of last season, and I feel like Antonio up front is going to throw his weight around and bully centre-backs like Davis and Dyer at the back. I feel like West Ham will have a great opportunity, and we know this is their biggest game of the season, being arch rivals with Tottenham Hotspur. So going into this game, I think West Ham will pick up a result. I think it's going to end as a 1-1 draw between the two sides. So the last game I'm going to be predicting is Wolves versus Bournemouth. And what a massive 3 points this is going to be in terms of the relegation scrap. And going into this game, obviously, I feel like Wolves are the favourite. I feel like they've turned over a new leaf, a new chapter, the way Lopetegui has got them playing football. And I honestly feel like in the next 2 to 3 weeks, it's going to be a distant memory that Wolves were even in the relegation scrap. Another massive 3 points against Southampton. And not only that, the manner they did it in. 10 men down, losing 1-0 away from home at St. Mary's, showing the character and the personality to show perseverance and toughness, to maintain calmness, to literally win the game. And I feel like that sort of victory, the nature of it, is just going to spark confidence going into this game against Bournemouth at home. We know Bournemouth this season have been one of the worst sides, especially this year. The last victory they had was in November against Everton, and that was the Frank Lampard era at Everton. So that was a poorly constructed team. And I feel like Wolves has such great momentum. I just feel like they've got so many quality players who can win you games. And we have been seeing that on full display ever since Lopetegui has unlocked them. Lopetegui has got them playing more attacking, more free-flowing, more interchanging, more fluid football, which has really been hurting quality sides this season. And I just feel like Wolves are on a roll. I just feel like they found their personality, they found their spark back, and they actually remember, look, we're actually good at football. We don't have to do this defensive sound, low block football. We can literally go and take the game to oppositions. So going into this game, I think Bournemouth will struggle, and I think Wolves will pick up all 3 points. I'm going to go for a 2-0 victory for Wolves.